Welcome, everyone. My name is Carol Trone. I serve as Executive Director for the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt. We're also known as Debt Smarts, and we are launching a series of webinars this fall. And the goal here is to make them short. I know they're over your lunch hour. I know you've got a lot of things to do, so we're going to keep the actual presentation part limited to about 15 minutes and then open it up for questions. And again, these webinars are going to be recorded and we will be posting them afterwards on our YouTube channel and on our website. Okay. So today, what we're going to do in our 15 minutes, we're going to just I'll quickly introduce what Debt Smarts is, and then we're going to just launch right into the things that we think you're all here today to learn. So we'll do a quick quiz, top reasons to fill out the FAFSA, terms to know, and then top 5 tips. All right, so what is Debt Smarts? So we are the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt. We are a statewide nonprofit organization. We're committed to helping students minimize student loan debt and borrowers avoid unmanageable student loan debt. So our mission is pretty expansive. We provide help throughout the student journey. So if it's before college, we're doing things like today, FAFSA help. We also have a pretty amazing Money Smart contest that, excuse me, that opens up every spring. And students who enter that contest have an opportunity to win a $1,000 scholarship for college. During college, we provide help with figuring out where and finding those scholarships and for budgeting, which is a big issue for students. And then after college, we have a student loan helpline, and I'll share more about that later. All right, quick quiz. How much federal student aid money was left unclaimed in Wisconsin in 2024? Now, I didn't set up a nice little polling thing, so think about your answer yourself, and I'll give you a second. All right, so in 2024, latest information we have, it is 189. It is 189.8 million dollars unclaimed. So it's a lot, and that's why we're here today to make sure that that we don't leave that money unclaimed. All right, let me close this up there. Okay, so okay, top 5 reasons. Now, I'm going to just assume that anyone who is taking your lunch hour to be here, you know that FAFSA is pretty important. But a common question we get is how should you answer this question for people who ask you? So starting off, just sharing this so that you have some answers. So biggest misperception that I certainly see in my work with FAFSA is that people assume it's only good for if you're going to a 4-year college, and that is simply not true. So the aid that you can get through FAFSA is good for 2-year programs, technical college programs. It's good for certified programs that are certified through the federal government, Title IV. It is good for a lot of options, and those options are actually growing quite a bit. So, so just emphasize that to families. It keeps your post-high school options open. So if you're thinking about things now, this is a year away from when you might actually be starting what's happening after high school. So it's just really important to keep those options open. It's quick. And I'm going to talk about how that's gotten even quicker. And for families where their recollection of doing this is with an older sibling or themselves, the biggest thing I hear from people is, "Wow, that actually was a pretty quick process this time." Also, what a lot of people I work with don't realize is many scholarships and state grants require you to do the FAFSA. And so again, if you don't know, scholarships continue to open up throughout the year. And so you may not know that the FAFSA is a requirement to be entered into eligibility for those. So a lot of students don't realize that as well. And then another common, comment that we hear is, well, why would I do it? It's just about getting loans. So it's not just about getting loans, but the loans that it will offer are really going to be your best loan options for college. And the worst feeling is to start college, realize that those costs of attending college are a little bit higher than what you're estimating, and to not have those federal loan options. All right, I'm not going to go into these terms in detail because we're going to keep this short, but just some quick ones that I wanted to touch on here. So when you're talking about the FAFSA, there is a whole library of pretty technical terms. They're trying to simplify those, make them not so confusing. There's a couple that have changed just in recent years. So it is no longer an EFC, which is the expected family contribution. Now, the number that a student's going to receive when they complete the FAFSA is called an SAI, Student Aid Index. And that is like the EFC, that is going to be a number that is based on a calculation. And we're not going to go into that calculation today. There are a lot of websites, reputable websites, where you can see exactly how that's calculated. You can also get in touch with me and I can point you to those. Contributor. So this is not new this year, but relatively new term. It's the student's parent. And the term contributor throws some folks off because they're saying, well, wait, I never agreed to pay for college for my child. And so contributor does not mean that. It basically means the person who is the parent who is contributing their financial information to the student's financial aid application, their FAFSA. And then, a lot of questions, the dependent versus independent. So just wanted to call this one out because, like with the previous point, students may say, well, my parents aren't paying for my college, so I'm basically going to be independent. Unfortunately, for FAFSA, there is a very set list of questions that the student's going to have to answer to have them determine in the FSA terminology whether they're dependent for the purpose of the FAFSA or independent. All right, let's get into the tips. So tip one, it is shorter and actually it's easier than you think. So clickbait aside on the post that you may have seen for today's webinar, the changes are, I would say, generally for the better this year. The changes in the FAFSA are in a lot of ways smoothing out what were some pretty significant changes that started with the FAFSA Simplification Act. So anyone here who's a veteran to FAFSA and how it's worked, it had a very bumpy rollout 2 cycles ago, and good news is that we're catching up quite a bit from that really bumpy start. So improvement number one, it's opening once again on October 1. And in fact, if you've got some super, eager beaver families, they can actually go to the website now, the studentaid.gov website, and fill out or request to be able to fill out the beta version of this year's FAFSA. Now, it's not going to get processed before October 1 when the FAFSA opens for everyone, but it is going to open on time. Another thing, and this is, not new this year, but more of a reminder, why is it shorter and easier is because it's pulling the IRS federal tax data directly into the FAFSA form. So, even a couple years ago, there was kind of a multi-step process where you had to exit FAFSA and then go into the IRS data portal to have that happen. Now it just pulls it right in, and in fact, families, parents and students have to consent that will happen, or and the question appears in the FAFSA, or they will not be allowed to complete the FAFSA. And then, we'll say an average of 20 minutes to complete. There was actually kind of a fun trivia question that I was in on a recent FAFSA presentation. The fastest anyone has ever completed a FAFSA was in 55 seconds. This is the new FAFSA. I can tell you as a parent myself, I have seen a huge range of difference from 2012 when I first did it to last year. So an average of 20 minutes, and for a lot of families, it is much faster than that. All right, tip two, you need to know what's new this year. So you could get very granular and look into all the documentation and see more changes than what I'm going to share here. These, I think, are the most important ones. So first one I'm highlighting is the automatic Social Security number match. This is huge. So when the new FAFSA rolled out 2 years ago, this did not work at all. And so people had, if they did not have their FSA ID set up prior to wanting to complete the form, they had to wait multiple days for their Social Security numbers and the parents' SSNs to match. Now it will be instantaneous. So we're back to those days, from 4 years ago, where a student can sit down, um, set up their FSA ID account, and go right into starting and completing their FAFSA. So that's really big. Another thing that is really streamlined this year, which is going to be a huge and welcome relief, is the contributor invitation. So there were so many times when a student might misspell the parent's name, or they don't know their parent's Social Security number. There were all of these roadblocks, and those are no longer. So what will happen is a student will enter an email address that their parent has access to. Those contributors will be sent an email through that email address, and they'll get a link. They'll get a link that has a code, and they can either click on that link in their email, or if they don't like doing that in emails, they can go straight to studentaid.gov, and there will be a button right on that page that says where you sent a code, and you can enter it here. So that should clear up a lot of the hassles and delays from prior years. So another difference, Pell Grant threshold now is new. So it will be at basically what is double the maximum Pell Grant, which is 14,790. So this is a change from the last couple of years, to basically try to prevent families from quickly shifting their assets and income and qualifying for Pell when otherwise they wouldn't. Um, I think a welcome change and improvement this year is there is going to be an asset exclusion. Now, this is what happened before the FAFSA simplification, and we're back to that. So families that have farms, they have small businesses or commercial fisheries, they can exclude the value of those operations from their assets. So that's welcome news, I think, for families that are have those kinds of assets. Now, other ones that may not affect families as much here. So new this year, if a family has foreign income, they will need to include that in their adjusted gross income. So before they did not have to do that, and now they do. Another thing to note, which I think will have a negative impact on certain students. So if you have a student who is going to earn a full ride scholarship, so by that I mean something that will cover the full cost of tuition and fees, they will no longer be able to receive a Pell Grant. In the past, a student in this category could use that Pell Grant for living costs. So this we expect this may make it harder for some students who really are at those lower income levels. Another change that just to note is that Parent Plus loans beginning next July, there's going to be a new annual limit of 20,000, and this is so no longer the full cost of attendance. And so, if you are working with families who are trying to do that financial planning, it's not going to be that they can borrow right up to that cost of attendance. It's going to be a cap of 20,000 a year. Another change is that those who so if you have a student who is who identifies as an unaccompanied or homeless youth, they will self-report this status if they have that designation from an authorized entity. So that could be coming from the school, for instance. And then a college is supposed to be working with them in that self-reporting status. All right, tip three. So I'm calling this one common mistakes. And they're not maybe exactly mistakes. They're more things that I think students should handle differently. So biggest mistake is that students don't follow up with the financial aid office. So if there are colleges, maybe they don't even know that they've been accepted, but once the FAFSA is done, the handoff is to the college. And so if there are changes with a family's financial situation since, their 2024 tax return, if they are applying for institutional aid, they need to find out what that college requires and when their deadlines are. If there are changes, other changes to report or things that aren't reflected through the FAFSA, contact the financial aid office. And many students are intimidated or cautious about doing that, but it's exactly what a student needs to do. Second, I'll call it a mistake just because I just don't, I wish students would realize they can send this information to up to 20 colleges. If they only send it to one, that's the only college that's going to give them a financial aid offer. So really strongly encourage students to list more than one college so that they can compare. And then a common mistake that really does happen on the FAFSA is that families and students they don't scroll down far enough to sign the form. So you'll know that you've signed the form because you'll see the banner and you'll see the notification in your email that yes, you did scroll all the way down to sign that form. All right, so tip four, don't go it alone. So I know that financial issues can seem very confusing and intimidating, and good news for those of us in Wisconsin, we've got free help out there. So College Goal Wisconsin, and their website is collegegoalwisconsin.org, is about to launch 44 in-person free FAFSA filing events around the state. And then there will also be 4 virtual ones. So these are going to take place between October 2nd and the middle of November. Students who attend one of these events and completes the survey will be entered into a scholarship drawing for one of 15 $1,000 scholarships. So super great deal. When they get there, they will find trained volunteers who can answer their specific questions about their FAFSA. Another resource is Fair Opportunity Project. So full disclosure, I am also executive director for FairOp. And if you go to our website, you can either use our FAFSA chat tool, which we update and train every year with the latest information. You can also book a session, a virtual session, to get help from one of our financial aid coaches. All right, so what you should be doing now. So just to reiterate, make sure you know the college deadlines. So that's, we don't have a FAFSA deadline in Wisconsin. The deadline will be next June 30th. But what you do want to know is what the institutional deadline is for the colleges you plan to attend. And if you're applying to go there for the first year, first time, those deadlines tend to be early. Second one is know your assets. So if there are things that you are planning on paying off, Don't do anything extraordinary, but one of the questions the FAFSA asks is, what are your assets as of today? So if you've got a big bill, you're going to be paying um, this fall anyway, you might want to look at going ahead and doing that. EdVest 529. So we'll have a session later in this series around the EdVest, but it is a great, great way to not only save for college, but to also get some tax benefit from doing that. And then next one, get organized. There's going to be a lot of deadlines, a lot of steps, and spreadsheets, whatever's going to work for your family. But there are more deadlines and more usernames and passwords than you realize. So our upcoming webinars, these are just some of them. We'll be listing these on our website. We'll be promoting them out. We'll plan to do them on Tuesdays at 12:30. So here's just some of the ones that revolve around, again, the topics that we support in our mission. And then here's our contact information. So debtsmarts.org, student loan questions, if you've got a student loan question, and then that phone number actually connects you right to the student loan helpline. You'll talk to a live person anytime between 8 and 4:30 Monday through Friday. All right, so let's open it up for some questions. I'm going to stop sharing. And if you've got a question, I think the group's small enough, we can either unmute ourselves or you can raise your hand. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead with some questions that I know I have seen and heard from other folks. So let me. Okay, so one question we get is it better to apply online or on paper? And it's online. So I know a couple years ago, uh, that's funny. I don't know where you live, Christina, but I'm glad you joined us today in Wisconsin. But so do it online. And I know that a couple years ago, with all the headaches of the simplified FAFSA, one workaround was to do it by paper. Don't do that anymore. Really, go with the online version because you'll have fewer questions. The online process actually does a little bit of error checking as you're filling it out. So you'll be less likely to answer with a mistake. Um, so another question that we see a lot of times, or, like what are some common errors that we see, is that students will just leave fields blank. So instead of putting in a 0, they'll put it as blank and then they don't move through the form. So, if the question doesn't apply, put in a 0, or if the option says not applicable, use that. Another common issue that is unfortunately kind of complicated to get out of is if a student or a parent sets up their FSA ID with an incorrect Social Security number. So that, unfortunately, students have done that. And once that account is set up that way, then you basically need to correct the account. And there's steps to do that that are outlined on the studentaid.gov website. But again, just make sure that people are extra careful when they're typing in that number. Let's see, what are some other questions that we see? So a lot of questions that may come up. So if you are yourself a counselor, if you're helping students, there is a chat tool on the Federal Student Aid Center. I know that we've all heard that the Department of Education has had a lot of staffing cuts, which is true. However, the FAFSA area of support in the agency seems to have maintained their staffing levels. So we have not heard about a lot of complications or delays from people if they are trying to reach student financial aid. Let me just put in the phone number here that you can call them for the information center. So I'll put this in the chat there. um, and you can also, you can also email us at DebtSmarts for questions. Okay, and then yes, yes. So thank you. So Maggie is reminding all of us that there is a reminder on consenting to use the IRS data exchange tool on FAFSA. Even if you are not a tax filer, you still need to consent to use the data exchange because it looks to see if a tax return is on file with the IRS for that year. Yes, thank you, Maggie, for that. That is true. And um, one of the more confusing things in the FAFSA from 2 years ago was a question about that consent, and the forum this year has tried to make it clearer what people are consenting to. So you want your family to say yes, I am consenting, so that IRS information is shared. Otherwise, the student will only be eligible for student loans. So I'll just share with folks if you're calling in again and you're in Wisconsin, I really encourage you to go to the College Goal Wisconsin website. Registration is not required to attend one of those events. They all start at 6 p.m. And they really are a great way to just get things done. Um, we, federal student aid still encourages people to start with the student doing the FAFSA. So that's really the best way to start the FAFSA, and then the student's invitation goes to the contributor. Um, However, it is possible for a parent to start the form if that's the only way they can do it. All right. Well, we're pretty much at time. I appreciate all of you joining today. I hope this was helpful. And again, we've recorded today's session and we will post that on our YouTube. I'll share it with all of you because you attended. And please let your friends and colleagues know that we are running this webinar series, and hope to see you on a future event.